If you could turn off your cell phones or mute them for the meeting, it'd be great. Becky, will you call roll?
Sure. Jack Skrogsted.
Here.
Danielle Allen.
Here.
Katie White.
Here.
Ron Gascoigne.
Here.
Reed Acree.
Here. All right, do we have any public attendees? I see none. If you guys have all had a chance to look at the minutes from last month, are there any changes that anyone noticed or seen? If not, we will, minutes will be stand as is. Transportation, solid waste. Dave Anderson, could you walk us through the review of the highway funds sources?
You bet. So you have that thing
Yep.
up on your.
We do.
screen?
Mhm.
Okay, so basically,
Thank you.
there we go. Okay, so basically what you're looking at is you got local, state, and federal funding. And it shows kind of the breakdown of each in the little flow chart here. You're probably most aware of the local funding, the county highway fund, the county special bridge, and the county matching. Your county highway fund, and I go over this generally each year because we generally would have new committee members and stuff, just to give everybody an overview, kind of how this lays out and how it works. But your county highway fund is your most general fund that we have. That's where you're making payroll. That's where you're buying equipment. That's where you're buying fuel and all the parts and pieces you need to maintain your trucks and things like that. You go over to county special bridge. That's only for drainage projects, bridges, culverts, even tiling and stuff like that in the roadway, ditching. It's drainage projects. And those are also for the use of townships if they qualify under certain conditions, and I won't list all those off, but if they qualify under certain conditions, they can petition the county for half the project cost on a drainage project, okay? So for example, when we do a township bridge, I don't even really make them petition. It's a bridge that needs to get out of there. So what happens is there's another program fund that takes up 80% of it, and there's 20% local match. We just split that with the townships, okay? So that's just an example of one thing we do with that. Your county matching is just that. That can't be spent unless you're matching state or federal money, okay? So a lot of times, what I've got programmed in on our budget is I got a fair balance in my county matching fund. I don't have quite so much in my motor fuel tax fund. So I might do $100,000 worth of seal coat work on county roads, but I may only throw in $10,000 of matching. And I'll throw, or I'm sorry, $10,000 in motor fuel tax and $90,000 of matching. All right, just as long as you're matching, you use that. Whenever we use our federal funds, you'll see federal agreements come through. Whenever we use federal funds, there will be an agreement in place that has to be signed by the county board or county board chairman. So it gets a vote by you folks that those matching funds go to match the federal money. So fairly restrictive local source of money there. All right, so you go over to state money. You've got motor fuel tax allotments. This is what increased with the passage of the capital bill. And I have, I listed RBI funds in there. So we got Rebuild Illinois funds. That was the bonded portion of the capital bill. I just got kind of a side note in there under state grants, that very bottom section, 1.2 million. And that's somewhat restrictive on how that can be used. So I've got till 2025 to use those, and I actually plan to use those all next year. One thing that might be helpful for you to understand how money flows in this motor fuel tax to county highway is where I have written down supplements, the county highway fund there in the box underneath motor fuel tax allotment. You could circle that and you could draw an arrow over to county highway fund and write the number $420,000. Okay, what in the world's that for? Well, first off, the levy's been increased over the last couple of years in the county highway fund, which has been pretty handy because essentially the county highway fund levy, it would not make payroll, much less anything else. So what we do is we're allowed to claim motor fuel tax money for motor fuel tax eligible work that we do on the roads and claim that. And we have to have that designated, all out, approved by IDOT, okay? And we write claims back to ourselves, out of county motor fuel tax into the county highway fund, okay? And if you look in your budget, there's $420,000 worth that comes from motor fuel tax, goes back into county highway. Your federal money. So we basically have two little sort of pots of money there, one for roads, one for bridges, if you will. So that's as easy as I can explain it. And it's federal money, fairly restrictive on the way you can use it. You got a lot of design guidelines and such you got to meet when you use your federal money. But we have spent enough of the money for the roads that I really don't even have enough in there to do a project next year with it. On the bridge side, we're building up some funds, but the thing about the bridge side of things is, I'm not going to go into super detail, but your bridge has to have a sufficiency rating below 50 in order to be able to use it. That's pretty bad. Okay, so our bridges really got to degrade before we can use it. I would like to use it before some of these issues come up, but once that hits a sufficiency rating of 50, and that has to do with how we're inspecting it and how we're rating it, which we're required to do. Once it gets below 50, we can use that. So
Who measures that? Do you measure that?
we measure it. There's a formula. It's called the NBIS Bridge Inspection System. It's done through FHWA, and we're required to do inspections with a 23 metric system. We're required to do them in a certain way, and so on and so forth. And how we rate those plays into the formula of the sufficiency rating. We have to rate different elements of the structure. And then there's different reasons why you rate certain elements certain ways.
I agree with you. That's kind of like silly to let it get down to, as you call
Yeah,
it.
it just makes it a little more difficult, you know, about the time it needs to be posted down and weight limit, you might be able to get it out of there.
Right.
And sometimes not. So at any rate, just wanted to kind of go over those so that you have at least a basic idea of the money that flows in and how it flows out of the highway department. So.
All right, I also see that you have a project letting schedule.
Yeah.
Just touch
I
base on
wanted
that too.
I'm not going to go over the whole thing with you, but I generally would hand this out to the committee when there was a specific transportation committee. And just so you knew what was coming at you the next meeting.
Right.
Now, in this case we've got it set up now, you don't want me coming in here and doing a whole letting at this meeting. It would take everybody be bored to tears. It just takes a while to get through some of this,
Right.
particularly this one in February. There's just a ton of numbers that I would be reading. And plus all the contractors are used to coming to our office at a particular time and so forth. So what I will do is I will hold this letting, and I should have wrote the dates on here. I will hold it the Friday before your meeting, this meeting here, okay? And then I will bring those results. And by the way, you're all welcome to come down to the highway department and go to the letting. I mean, that's basically goes without saying. You want to go, just show up at 9 o'clock the Friday before, and no problem.
No, okay.
In fact, I really rather prefer if at least one of you was there.
Right.
But you don't have to be. We will then tabulate all these bids. We can actually tabulate them and get them on the website generally before day's end when we do a letting. But they'll be tabulated on the website. But then I'll get the bid tab to Becky that she can put on your resource folder as well. That information then will come to you at the meeting on Monday here for you to vote to award the bids.
Okay.
So.
Perfect.
So if you want to attend, they'll be at 9 a.m. You can just write this down, 9 a.m. It'll be February 10th. It'll be March 10th. And it'll be April 7th. I believe that those should be the Fridays before this meeting.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave? Anyway. All right. I have nothing on the agenda for solid waste. Assessor's office, Jennifer Boyd was not able to attend. She's got some board review process going on right now. And then I don't want to chop up his name. Is it Sammy or Samai? Sammy? Sammy is not here either. All their reports are in the onboard. So if you guys want to, if you haven't looked at it already, but a lot of interesting things going on in that department on the changes going on. So any questions on that? Maybe Wendy could help you guys with questions on any of those stuff. All right. Wendy, county board stuff. Do you have anything to share with us?
I'm certain that I do, but I can't think of a single thing right at the moment. Would you circle back to me later? I'm ill-prepared for the meeting this morning. As you could tell, I came in late and I've got to get my act together here, but I do think I have a couple things I'll share with you towards the end of the meeting. Bob's in here though, if there's anything Bob wants to share in particular.
No, I have nothing to.
All right. Nancy, I see, I didn't want to forget you this time. So do you
Thanks,
have
Jack.
anything to share with us?
Thank you. Good morning. Just wanted to let everybody know that approximately about 8:40 this morning, I did swear in Miss Allen in my office. So she is officially good to go. So that is completed. And second of all, my election department is just rolling into the consolidated election, which will be April 4th. Early voting will start February 23rd. And then we also have a lot of things going on down there. Economic interest will be going out soon and tax extension will be starting. So election world is very busy at this time of year. And that's all I have at this time.
You'd think we just got over it. Now we got jumping right back into it.
Right?
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Paul Gorski, do you have anything to report to us?
Hello, thank you. IT is continuing to upgrade the servers, file servers in Newports and the LEC. And we are working with Jennifer and Sammy on one or two of their projects also at this time. And we're going to start doing some upgrades to the Office application, Office 365 and the probation department, hopefully next week. Any questions for me at this time?
Just going to say, do you know if everyone's got their email set up and with that?
Following up with Becky and Wendy end of last week, I believe people are set up. We had one person who was having a password issue, and Becky, has that been resolved?
It has not. She's going to be in tomorrow. We're going to get her set up. So.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thanks for getting that for us too. Greg Gates, want to run through your report with us, for us?
Yes, just some highlights. In terms of recent developments, the Reagan Mass Transit District, that formation actually is continuing to move through its formation process. Currently, we're waiting on approval for some appointments to the governing board. Two from Ogle County that I understand will be going to that county board this month, and one for here in Lee County as well this month. Beyond that, the next steps in the process will basically be a lot of paperwork associated with the formation of that mass transit district. Give you a snapshot of the second quarter, which closed for us on December 31st. Number of rides provided during that period of time was just under 19,000. Service hours, 4,900. Miles of service driven by our buses, 138,000. Fuel cost for the quarter, not surprisingly, a little pricey, $51,514. With the holidays, in terms of rides provided in the last week, we had a little uptick from when you compare it from a year ago, but still down from our average around 1,300 that we do on a weekly basis. We provided 847 rides during the holiday week or holiday shortened week last week. Continuing to do some work with IDOT as well as others on electric vehicles as well as infrastructure, one of which Bob Olson and I have been working on to get back to Exelon. They have some interest and some funding that would actually allow us to blow out some charging stations and maybe even purchase a vehicle on our behalf. Otherwise, we're still waiting to hear back from Michigan DOT in terms of the order of the 2 electric vehicles that we've already put in earlier this fall. I will note, just on regular vehicles in general, IDOT did come back to us and they did We had put in for some funding in a capital round, a proposal probably from 2 years ago. And they had stalled on it because basically it's putting a new vehicle into operation in public transit. You're probably familiar with the Ford Transits, which are a little, in my world, better than the light and the medium duty vehicles that we use rather daily in the system. IDOT basically is going out for a provision. They're going to do a procurement. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get 3 new Ford Transit type vehicles to put into the system, hopefully within the next year, if not sooner, but no word yet on that. Still doing some paperwork associated with the Oregon facility, as well as the addition onto our facility at 210 East Progress Drive. Hope to have something by the next meeting as to the feasibility studies here in Dixon, is also Rochelle, looking specifically at the feasibility of doing some fixed route transportation. And I know Dave was talking about some contractual figures in terms of funding. For us, if you look on the back side of my report, for state fiscal year 2023, we have about 3.83 million in funding, 245,000 through our 5311, and then 1.1 million and 929,000 for the 2 Greyhound routes. And then we also have the state DOPE contract, which is 1.555. And not listed on there, but we do have it in our coffers for available use until June 30th of 2024 is some COVID-related funding. Our overall contract with the state is 18.499 million for the COVID funding, and we have roughly 1.5 million of that left. A lot of that went to intercity bus, so to Burlington Trailways as well as Greyhound bus lines. If there's no other questions, that is my report.
Anything for Greg? All right, thanks, Greg. Jim Gorman, I don't see him here, so he's not here. Dee Duffy, zoning and planning. Is there anything you'd like to share with the committee?
The Zoning Board of Appeals met last Thursday night, and they have one resolution that'll be coming to the Executive Committee for zoning revocation that was recommended by the Zoning Board last Thursday night. We're also things down in Springfield, whether a county can have more control over renewable energy projects like wind and solar farms have been under consideration in Springfield recently. Last night, House Bill 4412 advanced to provide counties with what is said to be guardrails for siting wind farms. This bill purported to better align the state with its renewable energy goals. From what I'm reading, the proposal infringes on a county's authority related to land use regulation to the point where a county cannot allow this use by right, even if the county so desires. I haven't researched this beyond just glancing through some of the suggested changes posed, but I will be following these amendments closely as they will likely affect our ordinance and provisions practices.
Yes, they will. Charlie, do you have anything to add to that? If you had a chance to look at that proposed bill that's coming around?
Yeah, I've been perusing it over here. There seems to be a lot of changes that we would have to implement with our ordinance in terms of the setbacks and what have you. It's not just wind, but also the solar farms that would be affected by this as well. Obviously, it's going to have to go through the Senate, get to the governor before all that, and maybe there's going to be changes in the interim. But as I'm looking through it, it's pretty inclusive as to what we would have to follow, and we won't have a lot of leeway with that.
So all the work we did in those ordinances, we're going to.
But you did a really good job.
Yeah.
Great.
And no one can take that from you,
Thanks.
except the state.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, guys. Any questions for Dee? There's any questions for Dee on her stuff?
What was that bill number?
HB 4412.
Your professional organizations have been sending out emails. I know that Nancy forwards a lot of them on to you, so I believe you have been getting some things disseminated to you about this attempt by the state to kind of take control of how and where these are cited. So if you go back to some of your emails, you'll also see an update from UCCI in particular, although I think both state professional county board associations have been sending emails out regarding that. And they have been specifically asking that you weigh in on that, and you can actually officially go in and file what they call a witness slip that says you agree or disagree with this. And believe it or not, they will sometimes take that into account. I have filed witness slips before, and it's been a very effective mechanism for county officials to be able to let the state officials know whether you're in favor of this or not. There are some counties that don't really have anything zoning in place. And so for those counties, they may welcome this because they don't have anything of their own, to any sort of restrictions of their own. But if you want your voice to be heard, it's not a bad idea to follow those emails, go in and file a witness slip that says you are either for or opposed to that proposed language.
I don't know if any of our newer members are getting those emails. I don't know, are you getting those? Are you? Okay. They're good information to get. Some of them, you feel like you're getting spammed, whatever, but there's some really good information they put out for us to look at. So, all right. I see there's no petitions going to the zoning board. Petitions, none are going to the zoning board of appeals. No petitions are going to the planning commission, and there's no petitions coming from planning commission. I see nothing in unfinished business. Now, I also saw Chris showed up, or did he? Nope, he just stuck his head in the doorway. Okay.
Hey, Chris, Jack, I'm sorry. I see Chris standing in the hall, this might be a good opportunity for me to finally give my report if this
Sure.
works for you.
Sure. Go ahead.
So a couple of things. I was, as you probably guessed, after the last board meeting, very, very displeased with the voting mechanism of On Board. And so I issued an email with a laundry list of concerns that I had to On Board, and they very quickly jumped into gear. I've had an hour-long conference call with some leadership in On Board so that I could express my concerns. And they are working through the challenges that I've presented to them, and they're going to get back to me. In the meantime, you're going to see a little later on the agenda another test. Nothing has changed since last month, though. But what I learned from my hour-long conversation with On Board is that it's always a best practice if we come up across, if any of you, as you're voting, come up across a challenge, that you pay particular attention to what you did right before you got to that point of challenge. I know that many of you have gotten to the point where the toolbar disappears from the top and then you get locked in. And that's been happening almost since the very beginning. So when I pointed this out to them, the first thing they said was, well, were they in the book? Were they here? What were they doing? What did they click on? And I'm like, I don't know. So we're going to go through the mechanism of this again this week, and we're going to be a little more mindful of exactly what happened and how it happened so that I can give them much more specific details about when you're not able to vote, what's exactly is happening. I was able to describe a lot of things on the administration side, but I don't always understand where you guys are at when you get locked out or you have a problem or you can't simply get, as we saw at the board meeting, get to a voting place. So we're going to go through it again, even though technically nothing has changed, but I want to get better information from how you're managing it on your end. So that's one of my reports, is that I issued and had a very good hour-long conference call with them where I issued my concerns and essentially said these concerns need to be addressed sooner rather than later, or we're going to find another option. I'm not sure I'm ready to go there yet, mind you, but I wanted them to know that I was serious. I was very disappointed in how the votes have gone and how you've been frustrated with not being able to vote. So that's one topic. Another topic I wanted to give you a heads up on is, as you are aware, for the returning board members, the new board members may not be aware, we exercised an abandoned property program over a year ago and had some money allocated out of our ARPA funds to begin addressing some of the unsafe properties. The first property that we addressed was a property in Compton that had had a fire. That property, over a year-long process, has been mitigated in that the home has now been demolished, the basement has been filled in, and the unsafe conditions no longer exist. But the next step in the process was to determine what are we going to do with the lot now. And through various considerations, the next step we determined was going to be to take title to the property. We now have, through the judicial process, a judicial deed to the property. So now we're at the position of, okay, what do we do now? We now technically own the property. However, the county doesn't want to be in the position of holding property long-term, and certainly not a lot in Compton. The county would not have any use for that. So at your January board meeting will be a resolution for your consideration to transfer the property by quitclaim deed. In other words, we just quitclaim our interest. We don't warrant clear title. We just transfer our interest over to the Village of Compton. The Village of Compton has agreed to accept that, although they will have to formally do so by resolution. And then they will maintain the lot and/or decide if they're going to sell it to an adjoining landowner or what. Many of you might say, well, why didn't we sell it? Well, because as a government entity, our process for selling was going to cost us probably more money, or at least equal amount of money to what the lot was worth. And so we've decided to just hand that over to Compton and let them decide what to do with it. Now, when I say we, I mean those of us who are working behind the scenes. That'll come to you, this board, for consideration this month as to whether that is a prudent use of that property. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to address those. We're working on other properties going forward. And that's a nice transition to my last topic, which is the chairman and I have been discussing the idea of forming some small 3-member or less working groups for some of these things where I can facilitate, but I need board input. And so we've got some ideas, the first of which is the abandoned property topic. It would be nice to have some board members involved in that process. We've got some board members that are actually tagged for that. I'm not here to announce any board members because, in fact, the chairman's still considering appointments to that. Rather, I just want you to hear about the concept of what the purpose of these small working groups would be. And it would be to tackle a topic such as abandoned properties and consider options and actually provide input or direction that then would get presented to the board for full approval. So one of the groups would be the Abandoned Property Working Group. Grants would be another one. Right now, all the grant opportunities run through the chairman. He'd like some input from some other board members besides just himself. We recently received from the city of Dixon a notification that they want out of our intergovernmental agreement with regard to tourism hotel motel tax. And so we need to explore options with regard to where do we go from here. We've got some time to do that. That agreement won't be up until the end of this fiscal year, which is November 30th. But we need a working group to just consider some options that are out there and make recommendations to the rest of the board as far as how we move forward. So that's another suggested working group. And then last but not least is, as you know, we've been talking about doing a review of the current zoning ordinances. We've done a comprehensive review of solar and wind, but the other zoning ordinances haven't been looked at in 15 or 20 years. And so the concept is to have a working group that would kind of methodically go through those zoning ordinances, develop some drafts, concepts to present back to the board. So those are the 4 working groups that we're talking about creating. Chairman will be considering appointees to that. If anybody's interested, you can let him know. We've got some suggestions, or we've had conversations with some already. But if anybody's particularly interested in any of those topics, please let us know. Jack, that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Wendy. I see Chris came. Now, I noticed that you had on here that you didn't have any report, but do you want anything you want to share with us without notes?
Yeah, typically in December, you're not going to get a full report from our office only because our districts was 24 when they're out for 2 weeks. So we slow down a little bit, and most of our programs that we run are doing end of the year reports. We did have 3 things happen in one really recently, but 3 things that have kept us busy. Sterling Schools, which is our largest school district in the 3 counties, just voted at their board meeting prior to Christmas to join Nexus. So that adds a lot of students to our caseload. So we've spent some time restructuring and looking at how we're going to handle that addition. We're excited about it because that's going to, I think, provide a lot of support for the students in Sterling. So we've been working with personnel, and we do have everything covered, and we're looking forward to adding support to the families of Sterling second semester. for whatever reason, when I took over the office, I learned that we were about 4 years behind in our audits that are required to be done by our office. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, as the cause to that, because really, to me, it's irrelevant. We just have to move forward and get caught up. So we've been really busy with that. We finished our 2019 audit, have that with the Auditor General's office. That's taken care of. We have a new firm that was assigned to us from the state that's right now doing the FY 2020. And we have the paperwork ready for the 2021 audit. So they're working with us right now to get that audit complete. And as soon as that one's done, they'll be doing the 21 audit. And certainly by next year, I think we'll be caught up and back on pace, which I'm very excited about because it just, to me, that was not good and just something that we need to take care of. So we've been spending a lot of time getting stuff done for the audit to get that set. And then recently, I've taken a lot of phone calls because last week in the lame duck session, one of the legislators from up in the Chicagoland area decided to put forth HB 5188. And I just wanted to be clear to everyone, the bill does say that last year, the state adopted the national sex ed standards, national sex and health and safety standards, K-12. And I know that was a big deal in a lot of communities. But part of that bill that was passed last year was that districts had a right to decide if they want to teach it in their district and parents had a right to opt out. And 70% of the districts statewide do not teach it, did not adopt it, and have made that decision for their communities that it's best that they continue at a local level to decide how their curriculum is going to be handled. Well, they just forced through HB 5188 kind of last minute that's going to take away that right if it would pass and say that all schools have to adopt it. It was really kind of one of those late night deals. But I'm on part of the Illinois Principals Association, part of the IASA, which is the Superintendent's Association, and of course the Association of Regional Superintendents. I'm on all their legislative committees. So thankfully, all three organizations immediately got the word out about it. And they had thousands of people contact their senators and representatives, and that did not come to the floor. So we've been able to stop that. I don't know what the future of it's going to be here in the rest of the session, but we'll continue to monitor it and make sure to do everything we can to keep that off. And all of you that know me, I mean, I've said all along, I am a huge, huge proponent of local control. I mean, the people that live in our communities elect people that live in those communities to serve on those school boards, to work with the superintendent to decide what's best for their students and their educators. So we'll continue to stay on top of that. I know the Ogle County superintendents, along with myself, sent out a letter to all parents just to make them aware of what I just told you. And that wasn't really something that was organized here in Lee County. But if you do get any questions about that, it did not come to the floor for a full vote and is not moving forward at this time. So, and I can take any other questions you have about education right now.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Anything for Chris? Anybody? All right. Any unfinished business? I don't see nothing there. New business? Only thing listed under new business is the test of the voting system. We're gonna play with that again?
Yep, we're going to do that again. So I'm going to ask you again to be more mindful as you go into here. If you're on a tablet versus a laptop versus a phone, these are all things that are going to matter when if anybody gets stuck. And I'm hoping you don't, but if you do, be mindful of that so I can report back. So Becky, the first step, remember, is for Becky to go in and actually open the voting. So she has done that. Oh, yep. So she has opened the voting.
Just to let everybody know, I had to get out of the book, and then under notifications, I tapped on approval notification there. So that's what I did, everybody.
So Ron's in the same spot here where he's locked out to go back. Look at his screen and see. It looks like he's locked out.
This is what we're talking about, man. Locked out. There we go. Close the book. Go to the notifications.
Okay. Thank you. All right, everybody ready to go? If you haven't voted already, please do so. So the way this is going to work when we get into the formal processes, the chair of the committee will open the vote and the clerk of the meeting will literally open it in the software. You all will vote. The chair of the committee or board will call to close the vote after a specified amount of time that you feel is reasonable.
Okay, close the vote.
Did everybody?
We got it.
He's in? All right, all right. So the chairs, and a good practice in particular, probably for the full board meetings, is to, call for the close of the vote more than once, just to give everybody a warning. And
The roulette.
Okay, it's all closed. No more bets, no more bets.
all right. And so what happens is then Becky closes the vote, and what pops up on the screen here will show exactly how everyone voted, and very quickly it will summarize. Okay, all right. So very quickly it'll summarize, who voted in what way. Now, again, at the committee level, as we've decided, when you're only talking about 5 people, it's not hard to count up the votes. At the county board level, this is a much quicker and more efficient way to actually display the votes and read off the votes. Otherwise, Nancy was always up there having to count the votes, yeses or nos. So this will be a nice way for the full board meeting. All right. So did anybody have, besides, I know Ron did, so he had to close out and come back in. Is that correct?
Yeah, just got to figure out, the double tap or whatever it takes for this particular Macintosh thing, iPad or whatever you call it, to get that title bar back up.
And that is what I've told him is the most critical issue, because that's the one thing that keeps getting most everybody hung up.
Because you hit the button here and it just closes the whole thing down. You open it back up, it opens up where it was at.
Right.
So,
I didn't have to close the book.
So you got it and you didn't have to.
yeah.
And how about you, Reed, you were on your phone. Did you have any?
Yeah, I had a little help from,
So do you know what your hiccup was specifically? Do you know, you just couldn't see the vote?
no, it popped up once I got to the right spot on it, so.
Got it.
We're
Okay.
good.
All right. Okay. Thanks everyone for the continued experiment here. There is going to be more to follow. And in fact, for my new board members, on board a year ago gave a training. It was not during a meeting, but it was a training where you could stay at home on your desktop, laptop, whatever, and take a training on the overall on board. And they've specified or requested that they do that again for everybody. And this time it will include some of the voting module best practices, so to speak. I have continued to assert, though, that none of that is going to help if they can't solve the problem with the toolbar disappearing at the top of the tablet. Thanks again, Jack. That's all I had.
All right. Is there any need for executive session? Okay.
Jack,
Yeah.
excuse me, I apologize for being late.
No,
for this.
no problem.
But just, I don't know if everybody's seen it or not, but the UCCI training in Springfield on the 23rd, and we will not get a chance to discuss this at our board meeting prior to being too late to register. It's recommended for all board members, but especially new members. And they start out with a breakfast, a membership meeting, training, and then luncheon. It's all inclusive. It's got paid for by the UCCI.
Right.
And it's really good training. We have the applications if anybody wants to get one to go.
Anyone's interested, going to see Tom afterwards?
And I do think
we
that was
got it.
one of the other many emails that got forwarded to you. I sent an email out about it, and because the other professional organization also has their own training. So there's multiple opportunities for training if anyone's interested.
I've done a couple of Robert's rules, and just some of those little things too are nice little things to kind of get yourself aware of. So nice little thing. All right, we have nothing else. Is there a motion to adjourn? Katie, any seconds? Mr. God, I lost your Gascoigne. I wanted to say something else. Okay, any discussion on that motion? Not all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, guys. It was on the tip of my tongue. I'm like, and then I'm like, okay, his name's here somewhere. And I know a bunch of Gascoignes.